Opening impact, let me ask you something. When was the last time you sat alone in what I call the dark room? Not scrolling through your phone, not listening to music, just you and your thoughts. In this hyper-connected world of constant notifications and endless distractions, simply being alone has become almost radical. You see, in today's world, we're running from silence like it's our greatest enemy. We fill every moment with noise, with distractions, with anything to avoid being alone with ourselves. Every ping, every notification, every scroll. It's all just another way to escape the one person we should know best, ourselves. I watched someone at a coffee shop yesterday. For 2 hours straight, she switched between apps, constantly seeking something. Anything. To fill the silence. And I recognized that desperate search for distraction, because that used to be me. Always connected, always busy, always running from the quiet. But what if I told you that this very thing you're avoiding is the key to unlocking your true potential? What if the silence you're running from is actually the doorway to your greatest transformation? Theme introduction. I remember the first time I truly understood the power of solitude. It wasn't by choice. Life had brought me to my knees. There I was, alone in my apartment, facing what felt like the biggest dragon of my life. My business had failed, my relationship had ended, and my phone, that constant companion, lay silent. No messages, no call, no distractions from the reality I had to face. But here's the thing about dragons. They make for epic stories, and the harder the battle, the more legendary the hero becomes. In that moment of complete solitude, something profound happened. The silence I had been running from became the very thing that saved me. You see, winners and losers aren't defined by what happens to them. They're defined by what they make happen. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is embrace the lonely chapter of your story. Because it's in those quiet moments, those challenging times of solitude, that you discover who you truly are. Think about every great hero's journey. Luke Skywalker had to face his trials alone on Dagobah. Tony Stark had to build his first Iron Man suit in solitary confinement. Even Buddha found enlightenment sitting alone under the Bodhi tree. These weren't just moments of isolation, they were crucibles of transformation. Main content, the truth about dark rooms shares something most people don't want to hear. Your greatest transformation happens in what I call the dark room. That place where it's just you, your thoughts, and the truth about who you really are. No filters, no masks, no carefully curated social media presence. Just raw, unfiltered reality. Think about this. When you watch Rocky training in those iconic montages, it takes 90 seconds on screen. But in real life, that's 5 years of showing up day after day, mostly alone. No crowd cheering, no inspirational music playing, just you and the work. Those montages don't show the doubt, the fear, the moments when you question everything. But that's where the real transformation happens. Let me tell you about Mike, a guy I worked with. Successful on paper, but drowning in noise. I can't even shower without a podcast playing, he told me. Sound familiar? We started with 5 minutes of complete silence. Just 5 minutes. It felt like 5 hours, he said. But in those moments of discomfort, he started hearing something powerful. His own voice. And then there's Sarah, a CEO who built her company from nothing. Everyone sees the success now, she told me, but they don't see the 3 years I spent working alone in my garage, doubting everything, with only my vision to keep me company. Those lonely moments weren't her weakness. They were her superpower. Challenge. Start with your own 5 minutes in the dark room. No phone, no music, no distractions, just you and your thoughts. What truths emerge when you finally listen? What dreams have you been drowning out with noise? The lonely chapter's gift. There's a truth that might shake you. There's a chapter in every hero's journey where they don't fit anywhere. Too different for their old crowd, not yet connected to their new tribe. It's what I call the messy middle. And let me tell you, it's supposed to be uncomfortable. That discomfort is the sign that you're growing. I see it all the time. People starting their fitness journey, their business, their personal growth. Suddenly, they're too boring for their old friends who want to party every weekend. But they haven't yet found their new community of growth-minded individuals. It's like being in limbo. No longer who you were, not yet who you're becoming. Take James, a former party animal turned entrepreneur. My friends thought I'd lost my mind, he told me. Friday nights went from clubs to coding, from hangovers to early morning workouts. They called me boring, obsessed, no fun anymore. But here's the thing. While they were sleeping off another weekend, he was building his future in solitude. And then there's Maria, a single mother who decided to go back to school. The hardest part wasn't the studying, she shared. It was the Saturday nights when my old friends were out having fun and I was alone with my textbooks. But those quiet moments, they became my sanctuary, my time to build something bigger than myself. Remember this, if your story is worth telling, it will have lonely chapters. Those chapters aren't your enemy. They're the forge where your character is built. Just as a sword needs fire and pressure to become strong, your character needs these moments of solitude and challenge. Exercise. Write down your current lonely chapter. What old patterns are you outgrowing? What new version of yourself is emerging? Don't run from this chapter. Embrace it as the testament to your transformation. Building your inner fortress, the most powerful relationship you'll ever have is with yourself. In those quiet moments, in that dark room, you're building something invaluable, an inner fortress that no external storm can shake. Think of it like building a castle, brick by brick, in absolute solitude. Like David Goggins says, when you're alone in the gym, alone with your thoughts, alone in your growth, that trophy isn't on your wall, it's in your mind. No one can take that from you because no one gave it to you. Every rep, every page, every small victory in solitude, they're all bricks in your fortress. I worked with an Olympic athlete once. Know what she told me? The medal ceremony lasts 2 minutes. But the training, that's thousands of hours alone in the pool. Just me and my thoughts, while the world sleeps. Her inner fortress was built in those pre-dawn hours, in that beautiful solitude. Here's the reality. The noise of the world will tell you 1,000 different things about who you should be. But in solitude, you discover who you actually are. It's like clearing static from a radio. Suddenly, you can hear the true signal of your own voice. Think about Thomas Edison. He didn't invent the light bulb in a crowded room. He spent countless hours alone in his laboratory, failing over and over until he succeeded. That solitude wasn't his prison. It was his laboratory of greatness. The power of silent growth. Let me share something profound with you. In nature, the most important growth happens in silence. A seed transforms into a mighty oak in the quiet darkness of soil. A butterfly emerges from its chrysalis in solitude. Your greatest transformations will follow the same path. I remember working with Alex, a musician who was struggling with writer's block. I kept looking at what was trending, what others were doing, he said. Then I disconnected for a month. No social media, no streaming services, just me and my guitar. The album he wrote in that solitude became his breakthrough. This is what I call the silence principle. The deeper the silence, the deeper the transformation. Just as a photographer needs a dark room to develop their pictures, you need these dark room moments to develop your character. The epic story mindset. Every hardship you face right now is just part of the story you'll tell later. The bigger the dragon, the more epic the tale, the more remarkable the hero you becomes. Think about the stories that move you most. Aren't they all about someone facing their dragons alone? When I work with entrepreneurs, I often ask them, are you living your story or are you hiding from it? Because here's the truth, the chapters that scare you most are often the ones that transform you most deeply. Consider Sarah, a writer who lost everything in a hurricane. I found myself in a tiny apartment, no furniture, just a laptop and my thoughts, she told me. Those were the loneliest months of my life. But in that solitude, I finally wrote the book I'd been afraid to write. That book is now changing lives around the world. Think about it. Every great story has that moment where the hero feels completely alone. Luke Skywalker on Dagobah. Tony Stark in that cave. Your current challenges, they're not your downfall. They're your origin story. The question isn't whether you'll face dragons. It's whether you'll face them with courage or run from your own heroic journey. The alchemy of solitude. Here's something magical about solitude. It's where ordinary moments transform into extraordinary revelation. Like a chemist in their laboratory, you need this sacred space to experiment with who you're becoming. I worked with a CEO who made it a practice to spend one weekend each month in complete solitude. No phone, no email, no contact. Those weekends, he told me, are when I solve the problems I can't solve in the noise of everyday life. They're when I remember why I started this journey in the first place. The path of the hero. Your journey might feel lonely right now. You might be in that space between who you were and who you're becoming. But remember this, every hero's journey has these chapters. They're not signs that you're lost. They're signs that you're growing. Closing summary, remember this. The race isn't against anyone else. It's against the person you were yesterday. And sometimes the most important steps in that race are taken alone. Your relationship with solitude will determine your relationship with success. Because in those quiet moments, in that dark room, you're not just facing silence, you're facing yourself. Every great achievement in human history started with someone willing to be alone with their vision. Every masterpiece began in solitude. Every breakthrough emerged from someone willing to sit in the quiet and listen to their own wisdom. Inspirational endings though tonight. When everyone else is distracting themselves from their greatness, dare to be different. Dare to sit in that dark room. Dare to face yourself. Because the greatest stories, your story, often begin in solitude. And while the journey might start alone, I promise you this. When you emerge from that dark room, transformed and empowered, you'll find others who have walked the same path. What chapter of your epic story will you write today? What dragons will you face in your own dark room? Remember the dragon you're facing right now. It's not your enemy. It's your opportunity to become legendary. Share your darkroom story below. Let's build a community of heroes who understand that sometimes the most powerful chapters are written in solitude. Because while the journey begins alone, its impact echoes through generations. Your dark room is calling. Will you answer?